Hi everyone, so I am going to be doing my informative speech on hydroponic systems. These are great for growing vegetables or fruits, but I'm going to talk more so about the history behind it and how it's evolved, because it's not fairly new, but it kind of is at the same time, so it's interesting. But pretty much what happened is it's been around since the 1st century. So since Roman Emperor Tiberius. So that's, like I said, 1st century. So that's when greenhouses actually started originating. Now I know greenhouses and greenhouses and hydroponic systems are kind of different. But it's kind of the new age style of gardening that the greenhouses are centered around, which ultimately led to the hydroponic system. So the systems kind of started back, like I said, 1st century. However, it didn't really take until another 1500 years after, mostly because of the resources were pretty limited. So it made it very difficult for that time period to sustain what they needed. There's lots of different types of hydroponic systems. Of course, we'll get into that in a little bit as well. But it's a new age system. France and England were also doing it around the same time, back in like the 1600s, 17th century. They had different styles. Those were a little bit more oriented towards just like a manure style. So they used manure and covered it with glass panes. And that's kind of the first system that was kind of seen. After that, they had, China and Egypt, and the Arabs also used hydroponic systems. Those had different ones, like the Arabs used the dry riverbeds or the sandy areas to grow melons, which was fruit. So it kind of originated mostly towards fruit. Veggies kind of came a little bit later on, which is fine. But the elite were the only ones that were really able to have access to this fresh fruit in France and England. So it was kind of limited. It didn't really take too much there either, because it was so specific to certain classes. Since then, there was a lull of it. There was kind of this pause. So they came out with these systems and it was great. Egypt used them. China used them in the rice fields, things like that. However, what ended up happening is it became a little bit too expensive to sustain. It took a while to be perfected anyways, so it kind of just hung out for a little bit before it was really able to get its start. Wooden frames came about in the 1700s. Those are covered with oiled translucent paper, so that made a resource of oil necessary. Unfortunately, not too long after, oil prices went up, which caused a decrease in the interest of hydroponic systems, which made it, again, kind of pause in the advancement of the progress of it. Meanwhile, like I said, France and England were kind of doing their own glass pane thing, so it was a little bit different than what some other systems were, but it still worked. However, after World War II is kind of when it really started to come about. So they tried doing what's called a gravel culture. It's a little bit different. It's not as effective, so that's why I didn't take. That was, like I said, after World War II. They were trying to do tomatoes and cucumbers mainly. Like I said, unfortunately, that didn't take. It took way too long. It wasn't as consistent. It just didn't work out the way they were wanting it to. So then you go forward another 20 years, and it's a little bit closer to our time frame, which that new era of food, the thought of nutrition and plant nutrition became a little bit more relevant. The other thing that was a huge impact was plastic. So plastic is used in kind of mass production hydroponic systems. So pretty much, you can kind of see my little system over here. That'll be my visual aid speech. I have my own little thing I do, but for mass production of vegetables and fruits, what ended up happening is you take plastic and you use that to kind of lay on top of the concrete bed. So back in the 1600s, kind of reversing a little bit, concrete was a little bit more expensive to create, to make. So that didn't happen. So that's one thing that made it kind of stop. This plastic, once it kind of got this boom going and more resources were available, it became much better to be able to go ahead and use. So plastic was a huge influence on it. Once plastic was a relevant factor, a lot of people became more interested in it. People started studying, like the New Jersey Agricultural Environment Station is what it's called. Sorry, you'll see my dog. But pretty much what that did is they focused on the different types of methods that could be used. They could also focus on plant nutrition and how things were influencing that way. Soil, if they used soil for some systems that were previously not used, then what kind of nutrients was that causing? So that was one thing that was really helpful. Again, another 20 years, there's a little bit of a pause. Like I said, that lull that really took it to kind of take some time to get up to speed. That was definitely something that was beneficial. But let me see. So a couple different hydroponic methods I'll kind of briefly discuss now, and I'll go over in our visual aid speech a little bit more thoroughly. However, this is kind of just the gist that the New Jersey station was able to come up with. So you have one of them, which is aeroponic system. That's using an air filter within the water to give the plants in the water more oxygen. It's not necessary. I don't use it in mine, but it is one of the more popular ways because it is a little bit faster producing. We also have the ebb and flow. That's also known as the flood and drain system. That's kind of popular. I've never used it, but that's one thing that New Jersey was able to come out with. And then lastly, the deep water culture system, or the DWC. That's kind of more similar to what I do, which is just a base of water. It's really simple. It's not complicated, and that's why one of the greatest things is to use these, is because it is not too difficult to do. But basically, that's a hydroponic system. Wasn't around for a while, ultimately came back, and the U.S. kind of took hold of it and ran with it. So thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it.